All right, today we're jumping into a really powerful story about leadership, faith, and what happens when corruption takes root. We're digging into the story of Eli's sons.
You know, it's a question you see again and again throughout history, right? From ancient times to today. This story gives us a pretty stark answer, showing what happens when the very people who are supposed to protect something sacred end up treating it with contempt.
So let's set the scene. We're in Shiloh, which was the absolute center of spiritual life for the community. This is where people came to connect with God. But as we're about to see, there was a deep rot that had set in right at the very top.
The text really doesn't pull any punches here. These guys, Hophni and Phinehas, were the sons of the high priest Eli. And they're not just called flawed or misguided, they're called scoundrels who had zero regard for the Lord. This isn't some minor slip-up. We're talking about a complete failure of character.
Okay, so let's get into the specifics of how they operated, because it was pretty systematic. First, whenever people made offerings, they would stick this big fork into the pot and just take the best pieces of meat for themselves, basically stealing right from the people. But it gets worse. They would then demand the raw meat before the fat, which was considered the most sacred part, was burned as the offering to God. This was a huge deal, a massive violation of sacred law.
And this is how they did it. When people pushed back and said, hey, wait, we have to burn the fat for God first, this was the response. It was basically, give it to us now or we'll take it. This wasn't some quiet little scheme. It was open, brazen extortion, backed up with threats. Right there in a holy place.
But here's the twist. While all this decay is happening at the top, a very different story is unfolding in the background. A little bit of hope is quietly growing in the exact same place.
And this just lays it out so perfectly. On one side, you've got Hophni and Phinehas. They're violent, corrupt, and disrespectful. And on the other side, you have this young boy Samuel, who's faithfully serving, wearing the sacred garments, and actually earning the respect of everyone around him. You can literally see two different futures for the nation diverging right here.
Samuel didn't just show up out of nowhere. His mother, Hannah, had dedicated him to God's service from birth, so he grew up completely immersed in the life of the temple. So while Eli's sons were busy tearing the whole institution down from the inside, Samuel was this symbol of a new, faithful foundation being built.
Okay, so things are coming to a head. The problem has gotten so bad, so public, that even the old high priest, Eli, can't ignore it anymore. He's finally forced to step in. But the real question, is it too little, too late?
And get this, the corruption wasn't just about food and theft anymore. It had escalated. The reports Eli was hearing now were that his sons were sleeping with the women who served right at the entrance to the temple. They weren't just breaking rules, they were desecrating the sacred space itself.
And this is Eli's response. Just listen to that. He's not focused on the sin against God. He's worried about the bad report getting out. His big concern is public relations. It sounds less like a righteous condemnation and more like he's worried they're making the family look bad. It's just so weak. And here's the really wild part. Eli himself knows exactly how serious this is. He says this to them, basically pointing out that, hey, if you have a problem with another person, maybe it can be fixed. But if your problem is directly with God, who's going to step in for you then? He gets the gravity of it, which makes his soft-pedaled rebuke even worse.
So surprise, surprise, they don't listen to him. And why would they? They've been getting away with this for years. At this point, a little talking to was never going to fix it. The rot was just too deep. The whole system was broken from the inside out.
So, since the man in charge failed to fix the problem, the story shifts. A man of God, a prophet, shows up. And he's got a message, not from Eli, but directly from the divine authority his sons had ignored for so long.
And this is where it gets really personal, because this accusation is aimed right at Eli. The prophet asks him, why do you honor your sons more than you honor me? By letting them get away with it and by benefiting from their theft, fattening yourselves, Eli showed where his true loyalties were. He chose his family over God. And it all boils down to this one core principle. It's a clear, direct statement of cause and effect. You reap what you sow. If you honor God, you'll be honored. If you despise God, you'll be disdained. The judgment that's coming isn't random. It's a direct result of their own actions.
So once that rule is laid out, the consequences are spelled out in brutal detail. And this isn't just about Hophni and Phinehas. This failure is going to have consequences that ripple down through their entire family for generations. Let's just walk through this. First, their priestly power. Gone. Cut off. Then, this awful curse hangs over their family. No one will live to an old age. And finally, the ultimate humiliation. Their descendants, who were once at the top of the food chain, will be reduced to begging for leftover jobs just to get a little food. It is a total, complete downfall.
And to make sure Eli knows this is for real, that this long-range prophecy is going to happen, he's given a sign. A terrible, immediate sign. His 2 sons, the source of all this corruption, are both going to die on the exact same day.
But even in the middle of all this judgment, the story doesn't just end there. It's made very clear that this isn't only about destruction. It's about clearing the way for something new, something better. The fall of this corrupt house creates the space for a faithful one to rise.
And here it is, the promise. A new, faithful priest is coming. Someone who isn't self-serving, but who will actually do what's in God's heart and mind. And of course, the whole narrative has been setting the stage for who that person is going to be, the boy Samuel.
And that brings us all the way back to that first question we asked. For Eli and his sons, the cost of their failed leadership wasn't just a bad reputation. It was the complete end of their family line, the fall of a religious institution, and a powerful reminder that when people in power abuse that sacred trust, the reckoning can be absolute.